Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Voice of Business with Nicholas Jones. I'm here with Tara Russell, who is a social entrepreneur at heart and has her hands in a lot of different pies at the moment and is doing a lot of great things for our world as a whole. If you would like to listen to this episode again after hearing it now, you can also head over to voiceofbusiness.com. You can listen to this episode as well as any other past episode. So first, let's jump over to Tara. Tara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's good to reconnect with you. I met Tara, like 5 years ago while I was having lunch with Peter, my mentor, who we've had on the show, and I've talked about a few times. And since then, you have started some wonderful things, specifically Create Common Good. And, before we get into talking about Create Common Good, I'd like to just share a little bit with us about who you are and kind of what drives you so that we can kind of kick this off in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy to have the chance to catch up with you. It has been a while since we've seen each other. It was fun to reconnect. At heart, I guess, so I started my career really as an engineer. I studied engineering and really worked my first career in consumer products. So I worked for General Motors, for Nike, and for Intel, both in the U.S. and overseas, and really had a chance to kind of live my MBA through my work experiences, which was great. I did everything from kind of design development through technical sales and marketing, as well as having the opportunity to be primarily in manufacturing and on the manufacturing floor across a variety of industries, which was really fantastic. And so it was through those experiences that my heart kind of opened up for the world. I lived in Shanghai in 1999 with General Motors and was fortunate to be a part of the Shanghai GM project. And that was really the year that I decided kind of who I wanted to be when I grew up and what I wanted to do with my life.
The thing that I really like about you is you're driving good. If we summed up everything you're doing, you're driving good. I tried to step into that world and found it significantly different than business. Now, building and driving all is the same behind the scenes across the board, but the regulations and kind of understanding what you're going at was where I had a difficult time. For those people who have a similar mindset and heart and passion that you do, what would be some good advice that you'd give to them when it comes to figuring out how to navigate the nonprofit or social enterprise world?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's hard to do good, but what I tell people is that it really doesn't matter what the structure you're using. I think what matters is what's your mission, what's your intention, what's the purpose behind your business. I'm fortunate to be a part of and involved with a wide variety of companies, for-profits, nonprofits, some B corporations, some not B corporations. Really, I think any entrepreneur and anyone with a vision has to think about what is their access to capital strategy. Do they want to raise money? Do they want to potentially have investors? Do they want to potentially go after grant or foundation money to serve their mission? But the truth is, if you're purposed, intentional, and clear about what you're trying to accomplish and what results you want to drive, you can do it in either a nonprofit or a for-profit structure. And what's exciting right now is, we're living in a time where there's, the benefit corporation structure. And I personally am involved with a variety of benefit corporations, and I love the B Corp structure as well because it essentially incorporates into the legal structure and the articles of incorporation that you have intent, need, and purpose to not just serve a fiduciary responsibility, but also to serve the environment and to serve all sort of human stakeholders involved in the business as well. And to me, it's imperative that we're not just thinking about human social impact aspects, but we're also thinking about climate impacts and how we care for the environment, how we steward the environment, how we ensure that the place, our kids are growing up and that we're theoretically and hopefully going to grow old, can be, serving and supporting us. It's important that we think about that not just in our day-to-day actions at home, but also in our day-to-day business actions as well.
I 100% agree. And so you've got this this business, or I guess nonprofit, Create Common Good, that I would like to actually focus a little bit about talking and delving into. But would you give me, I don't want to slaughter it for everybody who's listening, could you give us a brief description about what Create Common Good is?
Sure. Create Common Good is pretty simple. I always tell people we do two things. We train people and we feed people. Essentially, we are a social enterprise that provides job training and employment skills to those who have significant barriers to employment. So we serve refugees, we serve women at risk, we serve homeless individuals, we serve formerly incarcerated individuals, we serve some who have severe autism or Asperger's or other sort of social barriers to employment. But essentially, we're there to provide an on-ramp to those who might not otherwise have a way to get to work. So in other words, we're an alternative education vehicle for adults. So for someone who maybe can't go to college, for someone who maybe has never worked in this country, we're there to provide them essentially a very disciplined, intentioned educational vehicle. Our program is sort of 2 months with us and then a few months with employers. So it's spans the course of almost 6 months that we're essentially caring for and supporting adults as we're helping them get to work.
And what year did you start Create Common Good?
So we started Create Common Good in 2008. It was an interesting year. Most will remember it because it's when the economy tanked, and it's when I and my family, my kids and I, had moved to Boise, Idaho. And so it was one of those times where I was wrestling with what was going to be the next season, how could I best leverage my gifts and talents, and how could I really best serve for the community. Right about then, the economy tanked, and about half the refugee families that were living in Boise, Idaho at the time were on the brink of homelessness. And prior to that, I'd been living in Bangkok, Thailand, and Southeast Asia, and I'd been building other organizations that were serving and supporting really challenged adults, people with barriers to employment. And so it felt natural to jump into this space and ensure that those who are living in the community who were most fragile and most vulnerable, that we could do everything we could to essentially equip them with the skills and really with the resources and the network so they could work. I was meeting, teachers, I was meeting former lawyers, former doctors, and many of them, whether they were from Bhutan or from Iraq or from, somewhere else around the world, they were struggling to get jobs cleaning toilets. And, it just broke my heart. I mean, the truth is, we're so fortunate to have these wonderfully talented, amazing individuals who come and join our communities. And yet, what a shame if we can't do our part to ensure they get into healthy, quality, livable wage jobs. And so, I had experienced, when I was living in Shanghai, China, as a young adult by myself, I had experienced the kindness and generosity of so many Chinese families, so many Chinese adults. And I understood, having lived overseas by myself, how hard it is to enter a new culture and really to just be challenged with day-to-day things that at home might be simple, but in a foreign place are so, so difficult. Basic things like, how do you mail a letter? Mm-hmm. How do you go find certain food items? Those simple things in a foreign culture when you're living overseas and working overseas are incredibly difficult. So, I was fortunate to be able to kind of step into that space, and that was now almost 12 years ago when we started.
And when you started it, you have that two-pronged approach you talked about: train people, feed people. Was that how it started, or did it evolve into that?
Well, it's interesting, and you as an entrepreneur understand this better than anyone. We've always trained people and we've always fed people, but how we've fed them has evolved. So we had a small organic farm at one point, and we were serving and supporting a wide variety of, really formerly agrarian kind of background and culture refugee families. So refugees from Bhutan, from all over Africa, from, a wide variety of primarily agrarian locations. So agricultural training was one of the aspects that we offered. Through the seasons, we have had events, food-based events. We've had, a wide variety of food service and really kind of, I would say, earned revenue model approaches through the lens of food. But there's always been a food component. So what we've kind of landed on over these last several years is we're essentially a B2B food production shop, for lack of a better term. So, we provide the parfait cups, fruit and cheese cups, sandwiches, salads, those kind of things to the airport, to coffee shops around town, to a wide variety of businesses. So essentially, pre-COVID, we were serving a wide network of businesses throughout the valley. Post-COVID, our feeding model has evolved, again, pivoted pretty quickly, but we're mostly doing emergency feeding now. So we're feeding about 2,000 meals a week to those who've tested positive with COVID, to the medically fragile, to a wide variety of homeless, and to those who maybe have left the hospital having had COVID but can't go home yet. So we're sort of standing in the gap doing just a wide variety of emergency feeding right now.
And when you do the emergency feeding, these are meals that you prep at your location and then deliver to those who need the meal?
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So we are working in partnership, as you can imagine, with the Interfaith Sanctuary, with the Idaho Food Bank. We're essentially working with a wide network of providers in town. But what's happening is that, for instance, homeless families are now being sheltered at the Red Lion Hotel. So we're feeding daily at the Red Lion Hotel 3 meals a day. We're feeding a wide variety of locations. But to your point, we're preparing those meals in our facility where we hold our training classes and where we have our trainees and our staff. And then we're delivering them to the locations in town where we have these, really vulnerable populations located.
Okay, well, good. No, I like that. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to The Voice of Business with Nicholas Jones as your host and the interviewee of Tara Russell. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to The Voice of Business with Nicholas Jones. I'm here with Tara Russell, who started a nonprofit or a social enterprise called Create Common Good. And we've been recently talking about a step that she took in the right direction when the apocalypse hit us all for 2020. Let's talk a little bit more about that, Tara. So are there any other steps you took to adjust for 2020?
Well, as you know, I feel like the life of an entrepreneur is endless pivoting, endless adjusting, endless of, evolving. But I'm so proud of our team at Create Common Good. I serve on the board, along with, a number of remarkable leaders, that serve and support Create Common Good through the board. But our CEO, Sin Renau, is just resilient, remarkable, strong, and tenacious beyond, anyone I've worked with in this space. She's fantastic. And so as soon as schools closed down and really as COVID hit, a lot of our feeding has been healthy feeding in and through the schools, in addition to other locations that might have been open for business pre-COVID, but immediately were pretty much shut down. And yet, in and through the community, there were a number of people, families, organizations who had tremendously vulnerable populations. So we pivoted our feeding pretty quickly and have been doing about 2,000 healthy meals a week to the medically fragile, to COVID patients, to homeless, to those who maybe have had COVID, been in a hospital, and then can't go home yet. So it's amazing how many people are kind of living and falling between the cracks right now. And so it's been our intention to ensure those people have healthy meals, 3 meals a day. And so, right now, to just give you a couple examples, we worked in partnership with the Interfaith Sanctuary and have been feeding families there. We are so fortunate and grateful to work with the Idaho Food Bank, and thanks to some of the donated food we have from them, the meals that we're serving really cost us about $1 a meal, which is really incredible. And so
that's exceptional.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And so obviously we're always eager and thankful to have donations from anyone that's able to donate and share with others right now. I know it's a complicated time, but
well,
you know,
where do they go to
people,
donate if they're going to be if people are going to donate to create common good? Would they just head over to your website and is there a donate button they can click on?
it's super easy for anyone who's open to sharing. You know, hop on to createCommonGood.org. Again, it's just createCommonGood.org. It's one word, and it's easy to donate right online. You know, $100 donation serves 100 meals, which is pretty remarkable. You know, $500 donation, 500 meals. I mean, that right now it's so important to us to ensure people continue to get meals during this really precarious and uncertain time. And so, you know, we will continue to work to keep the costs down. We're getting a lot of food donated by the Idaho Food Bank, but obviously we can't get all the food donated by the Idaho Food Bank, and we can't also cover people's salaries. You know, we also employ and train very marginalized and disadvantaged populations. And so it's great because, you know, our Feeding Others also provides a way for others to receive training and some employment as well.
And is that where you primarily get the money for Create Common Good, is through donations right now during this hashtag 2020 type of situation? Or do you still have some fingers in some revenue generating aspects for the nonprofit or social enterprise?
Yeah, great question. So we've always done both, which is we believe as a social enterprise that there's a value and benefit to generating whatever revenue you can from earned revenue models. So we, like I said, prior to the schools shutting down, you know, we were doing healthy feeding at different schools. We were selling product to the airport way back when people traveled for fun. But you know, things have changed. And so we don't have as many of our sort of business to business customers buying product, or I should say the volume of product that they're buying is remarkably different now. And so, you know, as you always need to, we are ensuring that we're serving and supporting others who need the feeding as well. And so we've been writing some, you know, grants specific to this unique time. We've had some people donate. We have had some amazing donors who stepped up to ensure that we could continue to feed. But back to your original question, we think it's important to do what I kind of say is both and. Both receive donations always. You always need more than you know, you think, but also it just does cost more to serve, you know, highly challenged populations. But we also believe in selling product and services that help serve and support our mission. So no one's profiting any revenue that we generate. However, any dollar we generate essentially means we just need less in terms of donation. So we think that's great.
And we were getting a little bit of difficulty hearing you. We're still able to hear you. For those of you listening, Tara's joining us from the phone over on her way over to Stanley. Is that where you're headed to?
Stanley, yeah.
Good old Stanley. So there might be a little bit of a feed problem there, but overall the quality is pretty good there still, Tara. And so so when you make the food cups, right, you sell these, are you still selling the food cups to the airport or to the gas stations and coffee shops?
So we still serve the customer base that we were serving. For instance, Parity's at the airport is a big customer of ours. However, as you could imagine, the number of people traveling has significantly dropped.
Down just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So, and again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. We had a board meeting recently, and I was stunned by how rapidly some of our production numbers have dropped. But, you know, understandably, with the very few people that are actually traveling. So, you know, it's important during this time. It's an uncertain and precarious time for any organization, and yet I'm really proud of our team and of Sin, our CEO, and the ways that we've positioned ourselves to be of service in the community. And, you know, we're confident that people are going to continue to need both training and food. So we will continue to serve, you know, that mission irregardless of what happens as we move forward.
Good. One of the things that you had stated earlier is clarity. And that's one of the items that I've tried to hammer home with people over and over and over again. When you set your foot forward, make sure the message is clear.
Absolutely.
And when I tried to add a vertical into the social enterprise world, and no matter how much experience you have, no matter how many times you've done something, you always have those moments where you trip up and you slip and you just don't have it as good. And that's one of the failures that I had, really kind of stemmed around the fact that when I went into the social enterprise world, my message really wasn't clear. And I didn't have all of my ducks together. I tried to treat it very similar to a way that I always had, is that I go into the business, I throw it up, I create the product, I go out, kind of try to find demand, and then kind of refine it. But I have a clear message the whole time. When I jumped into the social enterprise world, I didn't really have that defined message because it was a new area for me that I didn't know how to do it. And I was too lackadaisical with it. But I realized passion plays a really good key in the social enterprise world as well. And when you talk, like, you have passion, you have your life figured out, you know exactly what you want. And even when you're talking about create common good, your message, super clear: train people, feed people. Can't be any simpler than that. And you're able to boil down your message. And that reminds me a little bit, because when I had done, bacon on a stick with the event business, which when we had talked earlier that I've stepped away from, my message was permission to indulge. Super simple. People get out there, you're at a fair, let loose, just indulge a bit, get a 2,000 calorie on a stick bacon, and just enjoy it. I mean, you're there already. You're not going to be eating healthy. Just fall off the wagon and enjoy. Right? That was my message. Super clear. Permission to indulge. And when we talk about create common good, though, I want clarity. Right? That's what we're talking about. And so,
clarity is so important.
What advice would you give to people who are looking to jump into that social enterprise world and are having a hard time making their message clear for people?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I to be involved in a variety of things. And, I work to try to serve and support others. Many come to me and ask for help. It's interesting, the word we're talking about here, clarity. I have I call it 3 C's, but I say courage, and conviction.
So say it one more time. It kind of broke up there a little bit. You said the 3 C's.
Yeah.
Again.
So clarity is so important, right? But also courage and conviction are so important, and I think that it's hard for people to get behind your mission if you aren't clear and succinct and articulate about what that mission is. So the simpler you can be about what you're trying to get done or what you're trying to achieve, the more someone else can kind of get to the aha of whatever you're about. And I think so many people are trying to boil the ocean, so to speak.
Yep.
And you just can't boil the ocean, first and foremost. But you, especially at the early stages of a venture, you're not going to be able to get the traction you need and not going to be able to see, any results in terms of a minimal or minimum viable product, unless you actually are clear, what is it you're trying to test? What is it you're trying to learn? What is the service, the product, that you're trying to put in front of a customer? What's the feedback loop you want to see and test? If you don't know that, it's going to be hard for others to jump on board and support you.
One of the things that I have come to learn over my entrepreneurial career, it goes around that clarity aspect where in my head, it makes perfect sense. Like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to go forward. And a lot of times that's where they get stuck in a rut. When gotta love that tongue tied. Whenever I'm teaching people at a college level, or if I'm teaching people on the side just for enjoyment, that really is the part that people have a disconnect on. Is people aren't in your head. They're not they can't see what you see. You have to explain that message. And I've always struggled with the elevator pitch and getting my message off to people. I've never fully grasped, hammering that sucker down, except for when I find myself in a situation where I have something that I really care about and I'm really passionate about. Then I never have any trouble with my elevator pitch. When Peter and I jumped on the board, Peter's my mentor for everybody listening. When Peter and I were working on Swift Impressions, I always had trouble with that elevator pitch, getting it across. My heart wasn't 100% there. And it took a little bit to refine it, but it always was forced. And when passion's there, though, for me is a key that I tell people that really can help build and transition into that clarity. because you love it, you enjoy it. Whether it's games, food. For me, I love all of that, and I have no trouble talking with people about what I'm doing when it comes to those aspects in those businesses. And clarity, courage, conviction. I love that. Those 3 C's. Is that something you came up with, or did you read it somewhere?
Well, I just kind of made it up, but I mean, I read so much. I'm sure I stole words from other people, bits and bobs. I'm, one of those people that I'm always playing with semantics and playing with words. I think, to your point, I think passion is important, right? And obviously I have passion for what I do. However, the older I get, not everyone is sort of a passionate, energetic person. And yet that doesn't mean everyone can't have meaningful purpose and make a meaningful dent in the universe. And so it's interesting. I use words like passion versus curiosity. I think I have endless curiosity for the areas and the spaces that I'm working in: affordable housing, job training and employment, various sort of community support resource areas. I'm working in the space of travel. I work in the space of sort of clean tech and new climate economy. But I think to be really effective, you have to be endlessly curious. And even if someone were to say, I'm not passionate, I'm not a passionate person, I'd say, that's okay. What are you curious about? What do you find yourself endlessly curious about and always wanting to learn more, to understand better, and to get your head around? Because I think sometimes it's about following your curiosity, and then maybe that sort of seed of what could become passion, can grow and bloom and flourish. But I think, curiosity is such a fun, simple kind of like cookie crumb, because everybody's curious about something if they really dig deep enough.
You're putting my thoughts into words quite well, because curiosity, it is what drives growth within a startup. You've got a new startup, you're driving, you can have those 3 C's and be driving all you want, but that curiosity keeps the boat rowing. We're going to be back in just a second. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. You're listening to Nicholas Jones on Voice of Business. Welcome to the Voice of Business, and I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday morning. This is Nicholas Jones, and just as a reminder, if you want to re-listen to this episode, download us on a podcast or listen to any previous episodes that we have, head over to voiceofbusiness.com. You'll find all of my social links there, so you can follow us on social media and also reach out directly to me if you have any questions or would like to learn more about any of these wonderful people we have on the show. Today, we're talking with Tara Russell, and we've been talking a lot about create common good. We've talked about the clarity that she has, as well as or the clarity, the 3 C's, so clarity, courage, conviction, and about something that I haven't really talked about very much on this show, which is curiosity. And I love what you're talking about with curiosity, Tara. The beauty behind that is that it can drive people to find a sense of purpose, and it can help you to kind of delve around with different ideas, and because everybody's curious, just like you said, Tara.
Absolutely.
And so I want to real quick dive into a little bit about what you did to prep going into this wonderful life that we're living in for 2020. With Create Common Good specifically, I was not ready. I wasn't prepared, and it took some extremely quick movement on my side to get ready for it. I called a meeting with everybody saying, hey, I'm not going to lay anybody off. Don't worry, guys. Here's what we're going to do. I had to create a plan overnight moving forward because my entire restaurant vertical just, took a good swift punch in the gut. Were you guys ready for it when it came at Create Common Good?
It's an interesting question. I mean, was anyone ready for COVID? And was anyone ready for the weirdest year of our lives? I mean, truthfully, I would say we are always positioned for agility. And I believe you have to be, positioned for agility. And yet, I think it's hard to say we were, ready for COVID. That said, we did pivot and evolve incredibly quickly. We were obviously, receiving and following guidance from, CDC and Central District Health and from others. We made some changes immediately in terms of, how we trained. For a period of time, we stopped our training. We're back to training. but we didn't stop feeding. And I'm really proud of our team. Like I said, we just have a remarkable team and staff at Create Common Good. And our team has been tirelessly working around the clock. Those who are most vulnerable in the community are eating well, 3 meals a day. And so that's been really joyful, whether it's families and individuals at the WCA, whether it's homeless families at the Interfaith Sanctuary, whether it's medically fragile or those who've tested positive with COVID, we want to make sure people have, high quality food to eat.
And I love your mission at Create Common Good. And in fact, I love the various other businesses that you have as well. And I actually want to jump into those real briefly, just to talk a little bit about some of the good you've done with Indie Dwell, for example. So this is, let's talk, give me a brief rundown about Indie Dwell. I know that this isn't one that you founded, but you were helping the co-founders. Is that correct?
I serve on the board of Indie Dwell, and Indie Dwell is a for-profit benefit corporation. So we're a B Corp, and we are based in Boise, Idaho. We have a factory in Idaho. We now have a factory in Colorado, and we're soon to open 4 other factories. What's exciting is we're a solution for anywhere across the country that is essentially affordable housing, but delivered through healthy, durable, and environmentally friendly solutions. So right now we're repurposing shipping containers and turning those into healthy, durable, environmentally friendly housing units. And what's exciting is they're, more affordable and kind of traditional affordable housing. But they're also a solution that provides jobs, equity, and sort of, really high quality employment for the individuals who work with us as well. So it's a holistic solution that I'm super proud to be a part of. We're growing like a weed, exploding. You could imagine affordable housing is always something that had an amazing gap of the country, but the need now is much greater. We're going to be doing some rapid rehousing for homeless families across the West Coast in a couple cities. We have all kinds of, kind of multi-family housing projects that'll be going up across the country. But yeah, it's a super exciting time to be in the space of affordable housing. And we have believed that there were better ways to approach this challenge. And, we're pleased to be doing it through the lens of a B Corp. We're pleased to be providing amazing jobs where people are, earning not just livable wage, but have 100% benefits, have, equity in the company. And so everyone benefits as the company grows. And it's cool to see that states all over the country are trying to get, Indie Dwell factories up and running as soon as possible. So, it's a joy and an honor. Our co-founders are Scott Flynn and Pete Gombert. Our CEO is an amazing woman in Colorado who joined us, I guess a handful of months ago, maybe a year ago now. The team has just grown like a weed. We've got remarkable talent from, all over the world. And, we're really proud to provide a diverse, inclusive, kind of everyone welcome workforce as well. And it's cool to see the company grow and, be a tiny part of that in and through the board.
And how did you get connected with them? Are these individuals that came to you with an idea and you helped guide them, or was this a company that they invited you to jump on board, or a mixture?
So I have been fortunate. I knew one of the co-founders well, Pete Gombert. He and I have sort of, been a part of or worked on various different things together as leaders in the community. They invited me to be a part of the board. I'm an investor in the company. We're currently raising another round. And we're always looking for sort of like-spirited investors. This may be the last capital raise we do, truthfully. But yeah, I was very honored and proud when they asked me. And it's great to serve and support Indie Dwell. And it's exciting to be able to help connect us also more nationally to some of the groups that I've worked with now in my travel role over the last, several years, having worked in sort of more purpose-driven travel space.
Well, fantastic. And so they're focusing on containers, correct? So they're manufacturing those into 1-2 bedroom homes for individuals?
So right now we're repurposing shipping containers into affordable housing units. That said, we're actually in the middle of an innovation and kind of new product development. And so we'll continue to deliver products with steel and kind of primarily steel-based. And yet we're going to not necessarily be using shipping containers. A lot of it's really complicated, and we don't need to get into the weeds of this now. But
we don't get too much, but just a little bit.
Yeah, no, the code in certain places doesn't necessarily allow you to use end of shipping life containers. And if we're not using end of shipping life containers, then it's much more efficient, and we can provide an even lower sort of it just makes more sense to do it sort of another way. So we're experimenting with a new product right now.
And the reason I brought this up, I feel it may tie in a little bit with my question. We'll see. But with Create Common Good, how do you get the customers to come into this Indie Dwell? So I looked at your guys' website. I reviewed it. What's the funnel? How do you get customers to buy into Indie Dwell?
We've never done any sales or marketing, and we have more business than we know what to do with. Our pipeline is through the roof. Affordable housing is a decades long. I mean, this problem is not. We're not going to see the end of this problem in our lifetime. So, unfortunately, we're in such a tremendous state of need in terms of affordable housing across the country that Indie Dwell is not going to slow down, anytime soon. And so as far as how we get customers, I mean, literally coming out of the wall.
Yeah, you just kind of just throw a rock and we'll pick that one.
Well, to give you a sense, we have projects in the hopper in multiple locations in California, multiple locations in Florida, Virginia, all across the country. And so what's exciting is all those locations will have factories and will have local jobs and local talent producing units for their local community, which we're really excited about. And it's a great way for the mission to have kind of multiple pillars of benefit.
This is a fantastic space, and you have your hands in some wonderful things that the thing I love to see is you found your passion, you found what you want to do, and your life is just exploding in all the good ways that come along with it. And I just love to see people chasing down their passions, which is partly why I wanted to bring you on here just to talk about it for a brief moment. And we've ended up at reaching the end of our time together on this, and I really appreciate you coming on, Tara, to share your drive, your passion, and for everybody that's listening, head over to voiceofbusiness.com, and you'll be able to review this episode and follow any links to any social media so you can reach out to me directly. Everybody have a wonderful Saturday and take care.